The smell of ozone and antiseptic hung thick in the air of Simulation Room 7B. Jonah cross-adjusted his Academy-issued gloves, staring at the flickering holodisplay in front of him. Anatomical overlays of 6 alien species danced across the screen, labeled in a language he still couldn't read without the implant's help. Across the ring-shaped medical arena, Creel, a 6-limbed, lime-scaled IX Cytherian, was demonstrating a routine mobility test. Routine, until it wasn't. There was a snap. A sharp, ugly one. Creel dropped with a scream that split the room like a plasma cutter through bone. Chaos erupted. 3 Galactic students hissed in chorus and scuttled back on their glider limbs. A gelatinous orb-shaped being began pulsing red in alarm. The instructor, a towering Drask with branching horns and no mouth, emitted a harmonic distress signal that tripped every implant in the room. Jonah winced. Seriously? He stepped forward. Creel's middle arm, upper left quadrant, hung at an unnatural angle. The joint socket bulged beneath the scale. Jonah knew that angle. He'd seen it on skateboarding kids, rugby players, even once on a dog. Dislocated. He glanced around. Panic. Paralysis. Not one of the dozen beings moved to help. Creel? Jonah crouched beside him. Hey. Can you breathe? The reptilian student looked up, his vertical pupils twitching. My third humeral joint is compromised. Pain index, significant. Yeah, no kidding. Look, you're gonna be fine. I'm gonna pop it back in. Quick and easy. Creel's crest stiffened. No, wait. Pop. A sickening crunch, a deep thud as bone met socket. Creel yelped, then fell silent, blinking. Jonah stood. You're good. Try moving it. Creel flexed the arm. Functional. Pain subsiding. Jonah nodded. Classic dislocation. You're lucky it didn't tear the... A shriek erupted behind him. One of the orb students had fainted. 2 Growlix skittered toward the exit, clicking in horror. A security alert blared. Unauthorized invasive contact, the AI assistant shouted through the ceiling speakers. Physical violation of medical protocol. Human student has engaged in unsanctioned corrective action. What? Are you serious right now? The doors slammed open. 2 security drones hovered in, blue lights flashing. Initiate detainment procedure. Subject, Jonah Cross. You have got to be kidding me, Jonah muttered as magnetic cuffs locked around his wrists. Jonah sat in a cold, white-walled debriefing chamber. His gloves were gone. His med kit confiscated. Across the table floated Dean Virilak, a jellyfish-like being suspended in fluid within a sealed chamber. His voice was a filtered buzz. Do you comprehend the severity of your breach, Mr. Cross? I fixed his shoulder. You touched a sovereign being's body without ritual consent. On Zephyra and throughout the Concorde, such action constitutes a Level 4 violation. Jonah ran a hand through his hair. His arm was out of its socket. He was in pain. We're in a medical training sim. What was I supposed to do, file a form? There are designated stabilizer drones for that. Which take, 3 minutes to warm up. By then his nerves would have spasmed. You people call that healthcare? The dean's cilia rippled in offense. You people. Jonah exhaled slowly. That came out wrong. The door slid open with a hiss. In came Commander Ziekthal, rigid in his obsidian Concorde uniform. His tall, bony frame and ridge-spined skull marked him as a Sonari, one of the founding species of the Concorde. He walked like a man allergic to forgiveness. I warned the Council, he began without preamble, that humans would introduce chaos. Barbarism disguised as initiative. Jonah straightened. Barbarism? I helped your student. You violated sacred bodily autonomy. The IX Cytherian healing process involves guided neural rituals. You shattered that cycle. You desecrated it. Desecrated? I realigned a joint. Ziegthal leaned in. Your presence endangers the very foundation of cross-species trust. I'm here because I want to build trust. But if saving someone from permanent nerve damage is a crime, then maybe this system needs saving too. Silence. Then the buzz of the intercom. By ruling of the Discipline Committee, Jonah Cross will be placed under academic detainment pending tribunal review. Tribunal set for solar noon. Ziegthal turned with a sneer. Prepare your defense, Earthborn. It won't matter. Back in his dorm pod, Jonah stared at the ceiling. A soft chime pulsed near his ear. His AI assistant, Yoko, spoke. Well, that was quite the first impression. You were recording, right? Always. Shall I prepare legal arguments or sarcastic commentary? Jonah sat up. Both. Start with precedent. Have any students ever been punished for medical assistance? Not humans. There was a case involving a Varkian that offered emergency hydration to a gelmanth. Ended in litigation over sacred fluid rights. Complicated. Messy. Also sticky. Jonah groaned. A soft knock interrupted them. The pod door slid open. Creel stepped inside, wearing a thermal sling and looking, oddly, pleased. I heard the tribunals at noon, the reptilian student said. Yeah. Apparently, I'm a heretic. Creel offered a strange grin. My arm works. That's what matters. Our rituals are slow. Sometimes, too slow. Jonah blinked. You're not mad? Galactic students are protesting outside the medical wing. But I told them I felt grateful. That I trusted your instincts. Thank you, Jonah said quietly. Creel tilted his head. You are very strange. But not cruel. I'll take that as a compliment. Creel nodded. Then I shall speak at your trial. As Creel left, Jonah turned to Yoko. You hear that? Yes. You've just made your first ally. In your first galactic diplomatic incident. Jonah stood, cracking his knuckles. Let's make it count. The tribunal chamber at the Galactic Academy of Interstellar Relations was designed to intimidate. Curved walls shimmered with faintly glowing glyphs. The floor, polished obsidian, reflected everything: Jonah's fidgeting hands, the nervous twitch in his jaw, the towering forms of the alien judges. They sat in a semicircle, 5 beings from 5 species, each a representative of the Concorde's ancient pillars. Every one of them was older than Earth's first orbital shuttle. A 6th chair remained empty, left symbolically for the observer, a tradition no one had explained to Jonah. He stood on a narrow platform under a cone of violet light. The air buzzed. A shrill tone rang out, then silence. Ziegthal stepped forward. Let the hearing of Academic Breach Case 1172 commence. Subject: Human Cadet Jonah Cross. Accusation: physical interference with a sentient being's sovereign physiology without consent, ritual clearance, or cultural protocol. Recommendation: immediate expulsion. Jonah resisted the urge to roll his eyes. He'd been warned, body language could offend more than words. One of the tribunal elders, a crystalline creature known as Aloth, tilted its faceted head. Its voice chimed like bells. Mr. Cross. You may begin. Jonah cleared his throat. Creel dislocated his arm. I acted. That's what we do on Earth. When someone's hurt, we help. Ziegthal clicked his jaw. Help? You snapped his limb into place without even consulting the species' medical archives. I didn't need a file to see it was dislocated. I grew up with paramedics. I've done this before, on humans. I knew what I was doing. But Creel is not human, growled a boulder-skinned elder from the Vareshi cluster. Would you operate on a plasma core because you fixed a candle once? Jonah stiffened. No. But I know joints. I know pain. And I know when someone's going into shock. A different elder, Viral, a gaseous life form housed in a translucent suit, spoke with modulated tones. Did you consider the cultural implications of your actions? The Scytherians view physical contact during injury as a sacred ritual. Their pain is spiritual. Jonah took a breath. If he'd been bleeding out, would you prefer I pray before helping? The room went silent. Not a good silent. Yoko's voice buzzed in Jonah's earpiece. Nice one. Now maybe try not poking the hornet squid nest. Creel stepped into view. The council allowed it without protest. I was in pain, Creel began. Jonah acted without hesitation. He did what none of us did. And he flexed the healed arm, am grateful. Ziegthal interrupted. That is not the point. Emotional gratitude cannot excuse an unauthorized procedure. If all species acted on impulse. But that's the problem, Jonah cut in. You call it impulse. We call it responsibility. Ziechthal's tone sharpened. Your species glorifies recklessness. You barge into situations without understanding consequence. We strive for harmony. You bring chaos. Jonah stepped forward, within the violet cone. You think our behavior is dangerous. Maybe it is. But your system? It's paralyzed. You needed a drone. We needed a form. We had 3 minutes of panic. I needed 5 seconds to fix it. You call that chaos. I call it survival. The crystalline elder pulsed faintly. Survival is not synonymous with civility. No, Jonah agreed, but it is synonymous with evolution. Gasps echoed from the observers behind the barrier walls. A thin, insectoid elder, silent until now, spoke in perfect galactic common. I request a brief recess. The council murmured agreement. Ziegthal fumed, tail twitching. The lights dimmed. Jonah exhaled and stepped back into the waiting chamber. Creel followed. You have a death wish, the Scytherian said. I thought you were backing me. I am. Just, maybe don't insult their ancestors next time. I wasn't insulting. I was explaining. Creel shrugged, his newly repaired shoulder flexing easily. You're not wrong. Just loud. Jonah rubbed his temples. If I get kicked out, Earth's admission into the Concord could stall. Creel hesitated. Then don't get kicked out. Back in the chamber, the tone sounded again. The insectoid elder, Chair Prela, addressed the room. This case presents us with a unique dilemma. The defendant's actions contradict Concord procedure, but not Concord intent. Ziechthal's voice hissed through clenched mandibles. Intent does not excuse damage. Was there damage? Asked Verrill. Another pause. Ziechthal's eyes narrowed. Cultural damage. Psychological injury. A violation of ritual. Chair Prela looked to Creel. Were you injured, beyond the dislocation? No, Creel said flatly. Do you wish to pursue grievance against Jonah Cross? I do not. Silence fell again. Prela clicked gently. In light of testimony, in the absence of harm, we will reconvene tomorrow with judgment. Ziegthal stood. Then I formally submit a secondary motion, initiate evaluation for Earth's participation in the Academy. If their methods threaten our harmony, perhaps their presence does too. The chamber shuddered under the weight of implication. Jonah stood frozen as the tribunal adjourned. As he turned to leave, Ziegthal brushed past him. You will be gone within the week, he whispered. One way or another. Outside, Jonah paced in the courtyard under an artificial sky. Pale stars blinked, but the air still felt too controlled. Creel joined him on the steps. You didn't make it easy. I didn't come here to be easy. You may be the most reckless being I've ever met. Jonah smirked. I get that a lot. He looked up. Do you think they'll really kick me out? Creel considered. Maybe. Or maybe they'll realize what they've ignored for centuries. Jonah nodded. That survival isn't barbarism. The tribunal chamber was colder than yesterday. Or maybe Jonah just felt it more. No expressions on the elders' faces, most of them didn't have faces in the traditional sense anyway. But the stillness carried weight. Jonah stood alone beneath the judgment beam. Chair Preela's voice, precise and dry, echoed across the chamber. Proceeding with final assessment of Case 1172B, Jonah Cross. Human. Charged with unauthorized contact and procedural deviation. Statements have been reviewed. Deliberation concluded. Jonah swallowed. No one spoke. Not even Yoko. A few dozen students lined the back wall, silent witnesses. Creel stood among them, arms crossed, unreadable. Ziegthal rose first. We are not here to judge the results of Cross's actions, but the precedent they create. Chaos, even with good intentions, is still chaos. We do not reward instinct over regulation. If we do, why have protocols at all? He turned, sweeping his gaze across the room. Remove him. And revoke Earth's provisional membership. Let them mature before they infect this institution. Preela gestured toward the others. Are there any counterstatements before we finalize the motion? No one moved. Then, the aquatic elder, Aval, encased in a hydration shell, shifted forward. The tank hummed as it wheeled up beside Jonah. I was stationed during the Battle of Core Deep, Aval said, voice soft through a translator. 3 cycles ago. A human medical officer, no more than 19 Earth years, saved my clutchmate. The chamber hushed. He didn't wait. We were pinned. My people had gone silent. The human crawled across 3 meters of collapsed wreckage with a shattered leg. When he reached us, he stabilized my clutchmate's gill sack with strips of his own uniform. Ziegthal stiffened. Irrelevant battlefield anecdote. It is not anecdote, Aval replied. It is history. It is memory. It is truth. He turned toward the tribunal. They do not wait for permission to save. It is how they are shaped. Not by ritual, but necessity. Jonah stared at him. What was his name? I never asked, Aval said. He never said. A pause. Then Veril spoke, voice quieter than usual. Perhaps, this is not chaos, but a different order. One not yet understood. Ziegthal scowled. And so we just allow them to reshape protocol as they please? Preela tapped the judgment beam. No. But perhaps, we learn. The tribunal fell into a quiet murmur of tones and clicks and pulses. Yoko's voice buzzed in Jonah's implant. Might not be dead yet, hero. After a moment, Preela addressed the chamber again. Jonah Cross. This tribunal finds your actions in breach of protocol. However, given the context, testimony, and the absence of harm, your behavior is deemed situationally justified. Jonah's knees nearly gave out. You will not be expelled. However, effective immediately, you are appointed to assist in the development of a new training module, Adaptive Field Response, designed to incorporate human emergency instincts into Concord medical education. Jonah blinked. Wait, what? Ziegthal exploded. This is absurd. You're giving him a teaching role? The tribunal has spoken, Preela said evenly. We must evolve, or we stagnate. Let the humans teach us how not to freeze in chaos. Ziegthal turned sharply and left the chamber without another word. Jonah looked up at the tribunal, stunned. Thank you. You were warned, Veril said. Now you will be studied. Learn to live with that. Later that day, Jonah stood in Lecture Hall Theta, facing a half-full room of cadets. The word instructor blinked beside his name on the holographic panel. I'm not here to replace your rituals, Jonah began, voice steady. I'm not telling you to throw out your customs. But there are moments when you won't have time to wait. When the drones are too slow, and the manuals don't load, and someone's life is on the line. He picked up a training dummy, humanoid, but with adjustable limb configurations, and twisted its synthetic arm backward. Now, this is what a dislocation looks like. A Galactic student flinched. Another scribbled furiously. Jonah rotated the joint gently and let it pop back into place. No pain sensors in this one. But you get the point. Someone raised a limb. A bulbous, floating orb. Jonah recognized him from the simulation room. What if we act incorrectly? Jonah smiled. Then you learn. And next time, you'll do better. That's the human way. We screw up. But we don't freeze. Creel sat in the back, arms folded, a faint grin tugging at his scaled mouth. Jonah nodded. Any of you ever seen a Terran emergency response? You will now. The hollow wall flickered. Footage rolled, firefighters pulling people from wreckage, paramedics resetting joints on soccer fields, medics crawling under gunfire to drag someone to safety. A hush fell over the room. You want to understand humans? Jonah said. We run toward the screaming. That evening, as Jonah exited the hall, Creel joined him. You're a teacher now. Apparently. You're not the worst. Jonah laughed. You coming to tomorrow's session? Creel tapped his arm. Only if you dislocate something again. Deal. They walked beneath the artificial sky dome, stars above, academy lights below. Jonah glanced up. Think they'll ever really accept us? Creel shrugged. Some will. Some won't. That's comforting. It should be, Creel said. It means we're not done teaching yet.